Good evening. Welcome to the last part of the 4-part series, Praise of Shiva. So once again, these are inspired by Shivratri, which has gone by on March 1st. And so you're welcome to view the other sessions on YouTube. On Instagram, we've had some technical difficulties here and may not be able to find all the sessions on there. Tonight's topic, the title that we will be exploring and experimenting with is Shiva, so God, who's remembered as the Liberator and the Bestower of Peace. So just give us 1 second here. We're just, those who are on YouTube, if you are having troubles being able to view, could you please let us know? I'm just going to double check here. Apologies for the delay. So maybe while we are figuring this out, welcome to just pause for a little wee meditation on yourself. I think it should be okay. Hopefully souls are able to access on YouTube as well. Okay, looks like it. So, okay, so tonight's session is on praise of Shiva and, Liberator, Bestower of Peace. And the reason why we chose this one is because really at this time in the world, everything is so unstable, everything is so uncertain. There is so much fear that is going on all over the world. And peace is really something that souls are really looking for. And so this title of Liberator just really pulled just my attention lately, that we are, yes, all beings from different walks of life, different stories, different backgrounds, different challenges, different experiences that we've gone through, but everyone in the world is looking for peace, regardless. And that's not something you need to learn from school. It is something that you don't need to be skilled and trained. It is a feeling that is very much speaks to everyone, that feeling. And it is very much connected to this word liberation. And as I have mentioned that, I'm just going to, just as mentioned that, and probably another session, that there is a connection between what peace is in this Hindi word, which is mukti, which means liberation. And in fact, this word mukti in Hindi, which means to freedom, liberation, is exactly what peace is about. You start to realize when you have moments to pause, what is our idea of what peace is? And it's not the absence of war. And maybe souls don't realize what exactly is peace, but if we look at our day-to-day life, we often think about peace as something that we experience when something happens. Like, okay, I'm peaceful now because I'm in nature. I'm peaceful now because no one has said anything bad about me. I'm peaceful now because I get a break. So peace has become actually a reaction. It's become a condition that I can only feel peace depending on certain situations. And that has been something that has become so conditioned in each of us that is why we come to a point where it seems like I don't have time to be able to feel good about myself. We don't use those words, but it always seems like I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to take care of this thing, this person, tend to these expectations, fulfill these expectations, fulfill these roles. before I can even just have some time for myself. And another way that what it looks like is that I don't have time for spirituality. We have time for everything else. But when it comes to just feeling completely okay inside, it's like we don't have time for that. However, what drives everything has everything to do with what I'm feeling, with what my awareness is, my attitude, my consciousness. It even drives, is what we had mentioned in the meditation one-on-one sessions, that even when it comes to food and shelter, employment, finances, it is really based on what decisions that I make. And so if that peace within myself, how I feel, and clarity to make decisions, if that isn't something that I am able to really strengthen, then it's certainly going to affect everything in my life. So it is very much connected to tonight's topic, God, Shiva as the liberator. That in terms of peace, what souls are really feeling is they're feeling heavy, they're feeling limited, they're feeling restricted, they're feeling there are few options, that they're tied down, that they're stuck. Like, these are the words that people use. And so that heaviness, there is no feeling of peace. And this is why, completely understandable why souls want to go on vacation, why they want to get away, why even what we addressed in the meditation one-on-one sessions, why we want to just have our mind blank, why we want to just close our eyes, we want to shut everything out, is because it feels like everything that's happening around us and whatever is going on in our mind is causing so much distress. And so this study of Raj Yoga is actually about being able to break free, actually to re-access this capacity that I have to experience the true sense of who I am, which was never actually defined by anything physical. And in a way, sometimes feel that Raj Yoga is really pursuing something that's impossible. But what you're learning in this study is that there is a deep memory, actually, of capacities that we have lost memory of. So there's a deep memory, but we've lost memory of it. And what that deep memory looks like is there's a longing, there's a seeking. Like, if we were completely okay with the way things are right now, there shouldn't be peacelessness. We wouldn't be looking for peace. We're actually looking for things that we used to feel. It's quite fascinating when it comes to peace. It's a universal quality. Every single language that exists in the world will have in their language the word peace. And each of us can detect that feeling. Sometimes perhaps that feeling may not be sustainable, but everyone is looking for that feeling. And there comes a point in for each of us, we start to feel like, I want this feeling to actually be sustainable, not to be conditional. And we start to realize that within ourselves, when things feel okay, it's okay. So after a while, it's like you start to realize that I can only feel peaceful if I'm dependent on this kind of situation, on these types of things that people around me can actually say to me, or how they behave. And that dependency actually is something that, again, is not innate in us. As souls, as spiritual beings, we are actually independent. We're actually beings of value that has nothing to do with anything temporary, nothing conditional. And so it's actually quite frustrating for each of us, unknowingly and maybe knowingly, not being able to feel that I am not influenced by things. And when we're influenced, that means our emotions are affected, our thoughts are affected, our capacity to have clarity and trust in making decisions are affected, our sense of feeling stable is affected. And so every being in this world wants to feel peace. They want to feel that feeling of being free from being influenced. And so God is a liberator. How does he free us? Is that he helps us to actually remember who we are. There is a phrase that's in the West, the truth will set you free. And that is sustainable in terms of what the shackles are that bind us to this sense of sorrow is actually our consciousness, that our awareness of ourselves right now is such that we actually don't remember our true innate self. We cannot access the capacities we have. We can't feel what our real value feels like. We can't break free from being influenced by things around us. And feelings such as, aside from peace, but feeling light, feeling loved, belonging, a sense of self-worth and self-confidence. We don't feel those things unless certain situations have to be a certain way, certain circumstances, which then implies that these feelings we have can only happen in a certain context. But learning that you are a soul, it's about actually, you have these experiences of peace, love, fullness, lightness, freedom innate in you. Not even just innate in you, but it's actually your right to actually access those feelings when you want, however way you want, through the day, and not during certain situations. The Supreme Soul, why is he called the Supreme Soul? Is that supreme means always beyond. He doesn't actually come into the body that way we do and forget himself. So he always has that memory of who he is, awareness of who he is, and able to access those capacities that we used to access. So in a sense, he's like the blueprint of what we were like. And when sorrow becomes so great within the soul, we start to remember who that being is, even though we don't know why we're calling out to him. Some do, they're in sorrow, and some they just may not even believe in God, and suddenly feel that there is just, they reached a dead end in their life, and they're suddenly thinking about God. And so ultimately what souls are looking for is freedom, liberation from this feeling of being temporary, being limited. And our spiritual parents' role is really to help us to break free from this illusion of what we think that we are and how we live that in a day-to-day life, that has to change within ourselves. So that's why the second part of the title is Bestower of Peace, is that what does it mean to bestow? And some look at that word, definition is to give. And what this soul does, our spiritual parent, is enable us to feel, to experience that we have a right. So we receive that right, not that it was never ever ours to begin with, we just can't remember that experience. And so the Supreme Soul, he can actually serve two functions with respect to this aspect of freedom. One is to help us to actually have an understanding of ourselves. Another title that we won't go into tonight, which is the ocean of knowledge, that he has in him understanding of what a soul is, how a soul functions, the capacity of the soul, and most importantly, the solution of how a soul can wake up again, how a soul can have their sense of self restored. And so he has this information that we need to actually start to remember ourselves, this information that we reflect on, that we allow to sit within ourselves to wake up this memory. And that's a part of what Meditation 101, which just completed its 4-part series this last Wednesday. But this is what Raj Yoga is about, is that I am studying with knowledge of who I am. So that knowledge turns actually into the experience that this is the truth. Why we use that word knowledge, it's like raw information. It's just the same thing as you take a textbook about calculus, and it's just information until you actually understand it and actually utilize it. And you actually say, now you have, this capacity to apply calculus. So you're learning knowledge about you, the soul, about who the Supreme Soul is, what his function is, what is happening in the world, what is going on in terms of what has happened in my journey, all of that, all in service actually for me to get myself back again. And when I actually learn to experience who I really am, to embody the knowledge, then I experience freedom. So that's one aspect in terms of his role as liberator. The second aspect is, of course, not all souls are going to take the knowledge, and that's not what they're meant to do. Everyone, again, as mentioned, comes from different walks of life. But in the study, you also learn that we are one global family of souls. And it's kind of like a tree. We are a variety. Some souls are Christian souls, some souls are Buddhist souls. You have souls of different religions, so to speak. But underneath all of them is that underneath all of these religions and these different experiences we have in this physical world, is that we still are souls, and that we still are looking for that experience and access to these 7 qualities, these original qualities of the soul, which is peace, love, harmony, truth, purity, bliss. And I'm sure I'm forgetting one other one. And so these qualities we used to access all the time. And when we feel ourselves, what it feels like to be ourselves, these qualities that we experience in a very natural way. We don't have to try hard to be kind, to be loving. And so we're also then looking for the experience of peace. And as I mentioned, souls come from all different walks of life, but they want to feel these 7 original qualities. And so the second aspect about God as liberator is that he's always in that experience of these 7 qualities. And that he's always vibrating that experience. And that's why souls, when they're praying to God, when they remember God, even though they don't know who he is, there is this feeling, solace, comfort of remembering him, even though they don't know who he is. And of course, there are a lot of ideas about God that are actually quite damaging as well. And that's another topic, right? That you also learn more about in terms of Raj Yoga, that many are afraid of God, and also that he punishes and he causes all of these different things. And I'm wondering if perhaps maybe we should have another series. It might be longer than the 4-part series, but it would be called Spirituality 101. Not just about myth busting in terms of just meditation alone, but just in terms of spirituality alone, again, through the lens of Raj Yoga. Because one of the things that is a concern for the Supreme Soul is that we have these ideas of who he is. But when we become body conscious, and our perception of ourselves is off, then our perception about everything becomes off, even of each other. And we all know what that feels like. We misunderstand each other. And it has so much to do with what lens, the filter in which we see through, that most, if not all, of the quarrel, the conflict that happens in this world, whether it's large scale to even just the most smallest things, is because there is conflict in how we see things, the conflict within each other. We don't see things through the same lens. And so there's disagreement to the extent where there would be conflict. And so if we can do that with ourselves and also with each other, would we be open to consider that we would also be having a misperception of who God is? Is that our ideas in terms of, we already feel bad about ourselves and we already criticize ourselves. And that actually is the reason why we criticize others, is because we criticize ourselves. And it may not be apparent as well. So is it possible that our perception of who God is as well is that we think that he's a critical being? And one of the things that we had experimented with in one of the early sessions of the Praise of Shiva is that this is a soul who does not come into a body and experience physicality, go through rebirth. He always stays in that awareness of being a soul. His awareness never changes. And so his identity never changes. And so we actually discussed about that in the first session. He is the only soul whose name never changes. We have titles, attributes for the soul: Liberator, Healer, Eternal Surgeon, Ocean of Peace, Ocean of Knowledge, all these different attributed names. But if we're talking about, a long time ago, it may not be the case now, but when they used to give a name to their child, it would be to actually identify, a sense of value and quality of who they are. They may not necessarily do that. It's not very common in the West. For some, they probably still do, but it's quite common in the East, probably in the Middle East as well. Lots of different countries all over the world where they very clearly they pick a name, not just because it sounds nice, but there's this deep meaning behind that name. But do we live by our name? Do we actually live through our name in the sense that, our identity is reflected by that name? Not always. We try, for sure. But this is a soul who lives by his name because he doesn't change. Like his occupation, his very identity, his function, his personality is reflected in his name. And his name has never changed. So it's not like, okay, my name is Shiva. This is the way I am. This is who I am. This is my function. So it's more of a subtle aspect. We're not talking about, on a technical way, but in terms of name, we're just talking about just identification and function. We souls go through rebirth. And so our names change, our personalities change, we forget ourselves. Even within the day, we play so many different roles, wear so many different hats, to the point where many souls sometimes feel like they don't even don't know how to identify themselves because they kind of have to switch themselves depending on who they are with. Souls don't want to do that, but we do that because, in a sense, we don't really know ourselves and we're always catering towards the situation, towards others, and not very clear about who we really are. And so, as mentioned, the Supreme Soul's nature always stays the same. He's always aware he's a soul. And so his stage never changes. The personality of what he's like, who he's like. And because he stays constant, his thinking doesn't change, his attitude doesn't change. The 7 qualities that he experiences never changes. So he's actually incapable of criticizing. He's incapable of seeing the negative. All he sees is the pure and true. And that's what he sees of us. He's also wise, though. Wise, so because he is understanding the story we've been through. He observes all that. And he never judges. And so he has this blueprint of what we are like. And his vibration alone is very freeing. And to feel that experience, to be loved, to be accepted, that feeling that's actually extremely non-intrusive, the feeling that I can let go. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever been around anyone with that vibration where you feel completely accepted, no questions asked. It's not like you have to have a conversation to feel that, but you can feel that vibration from someone. This is what the soul is like all the time. So he plays that role. So gives knowledge so that I can actually free myself. But his vibration alone also enables one to feel that peace. The purpose of why he gives knowledge is if a soul is interested actually in wanting to be able to free themselves, not just be dependent on his vibration and his company. So to become like him, basically. And so that is why there is a connection between him as liberator and bestower of peace. That actually every soul, even let's say that they aren't interested in taking the knowledge, and that's fine. Their true nature still is peace. Their true nature is still that they are actually beings who are not dependent on physicality. And there comes a point for all of us is that we do have to let go of everything physical to be back to ourselves again, which is this complete reset. Because we souls are eternal. But in terms of actually, we were at the highest state of integrity. We eventually lose our capacity, our power. We become depleted in our spiritual energy. But because we are actually eternal, we have to reset. We have to recharge, just like a rechargeable battery. In theory, if we're going to say a rechargeable battery can basically last forever, but it does deplete and needs to recharge. It depletes and needs to recharge. That's like us. We are spiritual batteries, spiritual living batteries. We are full at first, and we operate in that state of fullness, all these different 7 qualities. We used to be beings who lived with such respect for ourselves and others, but we lost that through time, being used to just being the physical, operating the physical, using energy. And as you know, you start to get tired by the end of the day because it takes energy to operate in the physical. And so we need to recharge. And so our nature, to experience our true nature again, get back to ourselves, that's what his function is. There's a separate title in terms of him as guide, but he helps us go back to that experience of complete reset. And you've heard of souls who've had near-death experiences, and they see, this light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. What they're actually feeling and actually having a vision of is actually our spiritual parent. They're catching a glimpse of that, of our eternal parent. And for those individuals who've had that experience, it is, of course, life-changing for them. But it's this memory inside that, we are linked to the soul. And at that moment, it's as if the Supreme Soul, our parent, has guided them into that experience, that home experience that they miss so much, that we all want to experience again. So this is a very, very beautiful title, because at this point in time, souls are really looking for that peace. And if for myself, as a soul, to be able to access that feeling with my spiritual parent, and two things, just to be in that company is very healing and very nurturing and recharging. But if also it is my time and I am interested to be able to actually master these capacities, feel this sense of peace and freedom, so that it is a feeling that it is my right, that even in difficult situations, I actually start to learn how to experience freedom, even in the midst of situations where I usually react or I usually am affected. So it's a very full topic in terms of praise of Shiva, all of his capacities, what his function is. So if you're ever interested in taking the Raja Yoga course, please contact the center, Calgary, at ca.brahmakumaris.org. You can also visit the website to find our email address, and also courses and sessions, and that's calgary.brahmakumaris.ca. So we'll just have a little time for reflection. And again, if you ever have any questions, we're keeping an eye out in the chat box on YouTube as well as Instagram. Just taking a moment just to ask yourself, what if you were around someone whose company felt so calm, so cool, so understanding, never judging, a being who is always grounded, stable, never reactive, never affected, never affected in the sense that no matter what mistakes I've done, no matter how bad I feel about myself, no matter even if I dishonored myself in terms of how I treat myself or others, no matter how far I've gone from myself, this is a being who always stays stable in how he sees me, the truth of who I am. A being who is not influenced by opinions. Opinions are different from the truth. He always stays stable in the truth of who I am. Always free. Free in the sense of not at all actually entangled in what is happening in the world, because he's not in that experience like I am. And so he stays in that memory of timeless experience of being a soul, constantly light, constantly in that state of integrity of being a soul, completely unmoved, never fluctuating, so clean in how he sees and how he thinks. No second agendas, no expectations, no manipulation. Constant in that truth, like a point. A point is constant. No confusion, no complication. Simply just the truth. This is why he's actually also remembered as the ocean of peace, because his state of peace is unending, constant. And I'm just catching a fragrance of what that being is like. Helps me actually to have the courage to feel this calm, this peace. But when the timing is right, to be open that I too am a soul. That feeling of calm, that feeling of peace is actually my true nature. That I can feel that when I want, whenever I want, for however long I want. Not because of the conditions, situations, outcomes. What is needed is that I need to feel that experience, but also start to be open that I am so. I have that quality just like my spiritual parent. That feeling of peace isn't a place. It's an experience I, the soul, can be in. Every soul is looking to be in that experience, completely let go of everything that isn't them, and start to feel who they really are. Yeah. Thank you for joining with us this evening. And once again, I don't know if all of the sessions, the 4-part sessions, were successfully recorded. On Instagram, we've had some technical difficulties lately, but you're welcome to visit the Calgary Brahma Kumari's YouTube channel. So if you just type in BK Calgary, you'll see our logo, basically the center's local logo, which looks like a white lotus with a red background, BK Calgary, and you'll be able to find under the public advanced playlist the 4-part series for that. And also recommend the Meditation 101 as well. So thank you again for joining. Om Shanti.